Cool. And I've got the PowerPoint open. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started and welcome everybody. So hi, everyone. And it's so much more fun to talk about giving out money and doing projects. So then this is way more fun than, I don't know, fire's coming and how do we get our neighbors to pay attention? So this, and if anything will get people to pay attention, this will do it. So as people start to see progress, it's great.
Turn the mic.
Okay, so Sherry and Mike are going to lead this meeting. They're going to be talking about implementation. So now that we've got this money for our different projects and our different FSCs, what's next? And then there's a lot of complexity. So these guys have done this a bunch of times. So you tell me when you're ready. I'm going to hand it off to Sherry and Mike. So Mike, do you want to lead or?
Yeah, I believe Sherry was going to start off with the first couple slides. Can you hear okay, Sherry?
And then let me know, you want me to bring up and do a screen share? You tell me when you're ready. Okay. I'm going to screen share desktop. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Hopefully it's not sharing. Is it sharing my screen?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. That's slide one.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We are going to do a little review about running projects. Now we are all ready to go, or potentially have already executed our Bill Dodd Holiday Fundraiser Party projects. And the idea is to give all the FSC leads and everyone on this call a little bit more of a strong foundation so that you can run these projects and execute them. Also, so you know what is involved in running one of these projects, so you can help us. Because for these projects, of course, Napa Firewise will be holding the contract with the contractor and kind of running the project. But we really do lean heavily on the FSCs. We need you guys for our support. You are the local experts.
Okay, why don't you start?
It's not, you don't have to.
Okay.
Right. And I'm muted, right? Yeah.
May we ask everyone to put it on mute, or is there a way that I can mute everybody? There we go.
All right. So Elaine, are you going to drive the slides?
Yes, I'm happy to drive the slides.
All right. So we're going to run through this. Mike and I are going to take turns kind of explaining the process. And then at the end, there'll be plenty of time for questions. And if anyone wants to dive more deeply in, you can stay on the call and we'll go through a little bit more nitty gritty.
Okay, you ready?
Were there any other housekeeping notes before we dive into this?
No, we're gonna talk about Measure L at the end.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
I just hit. There we go.
All right. So a tiny bit of review first. As you're all well aware, we had the Senator Dodd Holiday Fundraiser Party. We were able, with the help of Senator Dodd and the hard work of lots of you from the FSCs and support from all kinds of different sponsors, we were able to raise $1.4 million from the event. And as a result of that, we decided that the funds should go to the FSCs to help support projects throughout the county. And you all submitted a lot of fantastic project applications for funding needs in your FSCs. $2.6 million were requested total, and regretfully we weren't able to fund them all. So 1.1 million of the 1.4 million was allocated for these FSC projects. And additionally, each FSC received $10,000 to help support efforts for their FSC. The additional projects that were not funded through this process are being added to the Napa County CWPP expanded plan. The expansion is currently underway, and there'll be more opportunities to, oops, sorry, there we are, to add to those as well. And there's a link at the bottom of this page to the ARC GIS Hub, which is also on our website. Next slide. Thanks, Elaine. And you've all seen this too. We put this out there back in, I think it was January, when we first started discussing about how the funds from the Bill Dodd Holiday fundraiser could be expended. And these are some general examples of things that FSCs can use the funds for. We would like to track the $10,000 that you're spending as well. If you can send me an email and just keep me up to date about how you intend to use those funds, so we can report back to Senator Dodd how they're being expended. And also it helps us understand what the most pressing needs are for your FSC. Let me turn this off. There we go. All right, next slide. And again, this is really about sharing the responsibility. There have been questions periodically about what the role is for Napa Firewise versus the fire safe councils and the community at large. So this is just sort of one way to look at that relationship set. So Napa Firewise is really focused on facilitating wildfire safety for the whole county based on the CWPP and 5-year project priorities. And that is mostly evacuation routes for ingress and egress, public safety, residential community fuel breaks, ridgeline fuel breaks, defensible space, critical infrastructure. And so that was the result of a lengthy community-based process. And again, we are expanding on that process now, but it helped us kind of prioritize projects among a whole series of projects that are all priorities, but trying to do the most good as quickly as possible for the most urgent risk areas. And the fire safe councils are really the local, as you know, neighborhood-based effort to reduce wildfire risk. Just crucially important. For the most part, Napa Firewise serves as fiscal sponsor for the fire safe councils, and we're also here to support you in your efforts as much as possible. And we also need your support by providing us with information on what you need and what's going on in your neighborhoods. And then of course there are all the residents who do have the responsibility for creating defensible space around their own homes and properties, and helping out their neighbors by protecting them with home hardening and providing the defensible space for their neighbors as well. And then the community, the little blue squares are the community at large, our resource conservation districts, cities, county entities, and all the other partners and folks in the neighborhood. Next slide. So for this particular little exercise in the FSC grant process, we had requested your applications, and once we received all these wonderful applications, it was really, again, kudos to all of you. You did a fantastic job of coming up with projects to put into the pot. The award process was, as you know, a bit lengthy. We spent a lot of time wading through all the proposals and weighing them with all kinds of different metrics to select the FSC projects that would be funded through this round. Once the projects were selected, some of them were sort of deemed ready to go, but others, for the most part, they needed a little bit more definition, and we were hoping to have a chance to get out there and take a look at the project on the ground and kind of refine it and make sure that it made as much sense in relationship to other projects that are going on in the area, planned or currently underway. Coordination with other stakeholders and all of those factors have been weighed in. And now I think we've almost gotten through all of the projects and gotten them refined and ready to go. Just a couple more remaining in the next week or so. Another part of that process is getting bids and selecting vendors, getting the vendors onboarded. Permitting, for the most part, hasn't been an issue because we're dealing with private funds on private land largely. So that's been a really nice aspect to this particular funding stream. And then, so we've got introducing Zoom apps. That's me. There we go. Okay. The FSCs, once their projects are all ready to go, they are set loose to obtain landowner agreements and do some additional work to get the projects ready to go. So we'll cover that a little bit more in ensuing slides.
Slide.
Yes, please. So again, these are the project steps. Overall, again, Napa Firewise is going to hold the contract with the vendor and pay the vendor and do all of that. But we do rely on the fire safe councils to help with logistics for these projects. So the first step is to identify who in your FSC will be the project point of contact. This will be the person who kind of takes care of the logistics from the FSC side and can be a person on the ground to solve any local logistic issues, deal with things as they come up and kind of tend this along the way. The next piece is to define and map the project area and the scope of work. So some of this has already been done in your proposal, but we do need a map of the specific location if you haven't submitted one already. And this can be anything from a kind of a fancy formal map to drawn on to Google Earth or a printed map. Next up is a list of the landowners in the project footprint. So that takes a little bit of sleuthing. And then those landowners need to be reached out to for landowner agreements. After that, the vendor or contractor can be selected. If they're not already on board with an on-call contract with NCFF, the FSC can help us chase the information down so we can get them onboarded. Taking photos of the vegetation before work begins is really important, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a couple slides. And then monitoring the project as it goes along, and again, providing local logistics, and then follow-up photo monitoring after. And then sharing your success. We really would like you to share the success of this project widely with your FSC, and then also to send photos and a little blurb to me, and we'll get it out on social media and compile these success stories too. Next slide. Mike, you want to take over?
Yeah. Actually, Elaine, if you want to bump back one, I can kind of touch a few highlights on the previous slide as well. And real quick.
Stole your thunder there, Mike.
No, real quick, I've scanned through the gallery. I think I know and met everybody except for a few folks. So real quick, Mike Wilson, I just did a full 32 years with CAL FIRE, mostly locally, and then went to PG&E for a couple years as a liaison back to fire and law enforcement, and then was lucky enough to be able to help start Napa Firewise and the chipping program back in 07, 08. So was able to get on the board again this last year, and then have since come on full time to just deal with vegetation management portion of Napa Firewise, and could not be happier to work with all you guys at the local level and kind of be that middle ground between the top down and bottom up, between agencies and grassroots level fire safe council work. So with that, I'm going to shut off my mugshot here to save some bandwidth and go through this. So I wanted to touch on that map. That's something that I've worked with a lot of you on. You guys know these projects better than anyone. I don't care if it's on a cocktail napkin, Google Earth, any other type of app, but any type of map works. I've just been picking up with Peter LaCourte's help, bringing back up my GIS skills. So now I'll take what you have and turn that into a GIS shape file, and then we'll keep that in the countywide shapefile list and be able to track it and all of us see it. So we're building that out. But in the meantime, as you're scoping out and we're working through these projects, I'll take whatever you have that's been mapped and go ahead and redo that into a shapefile, copy it, or just redigitize it, what have you. List of landowners, that's something that we can help with, Sherry or I, through different means, and the GIS can help with that as well. And we're starting to get to know the vendor list pretty well. We have a handful of, and it seems like we're kind of developing regional vendors, which is kind of neat. Local folks trust, and vendors that are better at working, say, in creeks than others, or roadside work, or have machinery that can reach up and cut off 30 feet of tree from a extended boom and bring it down and chip the whole tree, different things like that. So as we go to pick vendors, let's work together on who we sign up. Landowner agreements, that's the biggest one we'll talk about tonight, really. And so we'll get into more of that later. And then sharing that story, the success of these stories, and the things we could do better is really important, like Sherry said. So yeah, we can kick to the next slide, and that's basically that picture of us scoping out a project in one of the fire safe councils, and I just got done doing the same thing up on Sharp Road, actually in Sonoma County, but fire doesn't care about borders, so we have Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council troops over into Sharp Road, and so yeah, we're getting a few of these border projects going as well. So
Hey, Mike.
next slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I might just add one thing to the team, part of the reason that the scope of the project, and importantly the map of the project, and then how we name the project, part of the importance of that is as we pursue various funding schemes, every project that we do, we want to catalog and then make sure it gets rotated in for maintenance. So that's part of the imperative for us, to make sure that we define it, get it on the map, and make sure that we sort of capture it long term, because eventually we're going to want to come back and do maintenance on that project in 3 or 4 or 5 years, just so you all understand how that fits into the longer term plan here.
Excellent point, Joe. Yeah, next slide. Go ahead. So landowner agreements, this cover letter is really critical. We've written some up already for not just DOD projects, but grant funded projects, and that's really helpful to paint the picture. We need to do that early on in the process as you're doing your landowner outreach, and then that talks about the footprint, the reviews, and we need a landowner's agreement signed for obviously every section of the project. It can be done in multiple different ways: hard copy, scan, and email. Sherry is the point of contact for tracking all the DOD project landowner agreements, and just kind of tracking the progress of all our DOD projects. Hard copy, we provide a PO box, and the best and most efficient would be the link that you see there, and that'll lead folks to a DocuSign. And we did just change and update that to be a bit more generic to cover any type of project. So that's been updated in the last couple of days. So with that, the APN is really nice to have, and there's multiple ways to get APNs. It's not totally required on the agreement, but it is nice, especially for folks with multiple parcels. Okay, and then you see the note at the bottom, so we can go next slide. And this is just a snapshot of the landowner agreement. We are running into some folks saying that that it is a little bit broad, that it looks like they're giving away the farm. That's where we just need to make sure and educate, and we'll work on this agreement. But that I'm just letting you folks know that has been a concern out there periodically. Normally these are signed and done pretty efficiently, but that also it's important to let folks know that they can void their agreement and get out of it before the work begins or during the work and what have you, and we'll work with them on that. So let's just kind of cross these bridges as we come to them during the process of signing folks up. Next slide. So this is more about the contracts. With these DOD funds, all of your accounts are set up, and Sherry's tracking all those directed accounts, restricted accounts for the fire safety councils. The contracts will be between a vendor and Napa Firewise Foundation. So NCFF will pay directly, pay the invoices directly, but we really need that point of contact POC from each fire safety council. It doesn't have to be the lead, but somebody who's handling a specific project in the FSC. We're going to rely on you to look at those invoices with us, be monitoring the project the best we can, best you can. We're not, everybody has different availability and skill sets, so that'll be tailored. We'll be there no matter what. Steve Burgess, who a lot of you are familiar with, wasn't able to join us. He's out of country right now, but he's excellent at, we'll have him assigned to a lot of these projects to monitor, be checking on progress versus invoicing. And so Steve is out there. We're looking at maybe bringing on another project monitor to handle more of the complicated ones where we might have blades on the ground, opening up dozer lines and ridgetop field breaks and such. But for now, you got myself, Sherry, and Steve Burgess. Okay, so this, and then it talks about this on-call contract. That's a tool system that we have to set up vendors, whether we use them or not. We can get them set up on an on-call contract, and then as work comes up and their project begins, then there'll be task orders written. And for that on-call contract, there's the list of things at the bottom that a consultant or a contractor would need to provide. Next slide. So for each task order, we'll work with you to make sure that the project point of contact agrees with the description of work, the scheduling. We all agree on the budget, measurable deliverables, the vendor quote, and any applicable maps and documentation. But we'll work with the project point of contact, but we'll actually submit that to Elizabeth Lamar, who is managing our grant funds. So that's how that works, task orders. And that's basically the scope of work, the actual project work that we're going to task that vendor or that contractor with doing. Okay, next slide. And this is where I was going to kick it back to Sherry. And if there was any questions up at this point, we can take those now as well. All right, Sherry. Maybe on mute, Sherry. Okay, I'm going to continue on then.
Okay, sorry about that. Technology. Yes, before and after photos, as I am going to mention again and again, it's really really important, and it really helps document the whole process. And it's really surprising to see how different things can look after the work has been done, but without the photo before, it may not look quite so dramatic. It's hard to tell the story without those photos. And then furthermore, if you look at the photo down below here, you can see that the before and the after photo were really lined up. And in order to do that, you need to take the before and after photos from the same location and have an anchor point in that photo. That pine tree served as a good anchor point for this particular picture. There are lots of different ways to do this. You can choose your own favorite way. You can even bring the original photo out with you, so you can kind of line up the view and then take the second follow-up photo. But again, it's extremely helpful to have those photos kind of thought about a little bit. So before your work starts, you can go out there and take as many photos as you like, but make sure that you have a few that you think really capture the location well and that you can reoccupy. Next slide. Got one more example for you. And this is up in the PUC forest, and to my eye, it doesn't even look like the same place before and after. You can see that rock in the foreground is the same rock. Nice work, Peter or Stephen. But for instance, if you had thought that you would use that madrone tree in the front, it's now gone. So just make sure there's something permanent in the photo as well. So you can, again, you can really capture the difference. And that, I think that's a really good example, pretty striking. Next slide. There are a few other items that we would love to have your help with. So again, the map of the treated area, we've gone over that a few times, but there are a couple of different ways to do it. The total acres treated by type of work. And this is something we can help you with too, but it's something to think about that as we're tracking these projects and as you're thinking about the projects you do in the future, how do you measure what has been accomplished beyond just your own sense of safety relative to the before? So this can be the acres treated, miles, square feet, volume of material hauled off or burned or chipped. But thinking about those metrics and tracking them as you go is really helpful. And some of that is in the work order with the vendor too. So we'll be helping you track that information. A maintenance plan, as was mentioned by Joe, none of these projects are permanent. Vegetation grows back, things shift and change, and this is an ongoing process that we will be adopting. So think about how and when you're going to need to revisit this area to maintain it and keep it fire safe. Volunteer hours. Do track your volunteer hours, your own as a FSC lead, the point of contact person, and any volunteers who are doing work in your FSC relative to these projects, but also just generally. It's really great to keep track of those hours. They can be used as a match, sometimes for grants, and it's just good to know how much time and effort you're going to take. And then finally, once again, share your story. So share with your FSC, send photos in a blurb to me for passing along to our social media folks and getting it out via news blasts. And we just really want to get this information out. And again, this is one of the aspects of this Bill Dodd funds that we're all, I think, really excited about, is that we can use this to demonstrate that we are, taking an active lead on trying to make our community safer. So we want to share that story out there and inspire others to do the good work, show people what a shaded field break looks like and what a fire safe community can start to look like as we piece this together piece by piece. Next slide. I think we're almost done. Any questions?
I was going to add a couple of things, especially about roadside field
Yeah,
work.
oh, yeah. Yes.
Steve Burgess had mentioned this as well, and I've noticed it over the years doing roadside county right of way or any type of roadside fuel mitigation. A lot of our roads and folks living along them may have planted screening material or actually have stuff built, or even art installations or different things in the county right of way. And when we're going through areas of the county which may have not had any roadside fuel treatment done to the degree that we need to start thinking about it from now on, because obviously our fire environment is outpacing us. We need to just know that we could run into issues where we need to work with landowners and work around issues as we can, but folks also need to know that that is a county right of way. It's a maintenance right of way. Part of that is for safety of sightlines around turns, as well as what we're trying to improve on, and that is the lowering impact of dangerous heat and fire conditions as people are exiting and firefighters are going in. So that's something that does pop up out there that we all need to do our best to help educate folks in that situation, and we work around it as we can, but sometimes that does come up. Hope that makes sense. And any other questions?
What's gone really well? What are some projects you guys have done so far that have gone well that you can share in like positive experiences?
I can tell you that all of Atlas Peak Road and Soda Canyon Road, those two are done. Those are big steps to getting done. That also is because they tagged into existing CAL FIRE grant money, doing the right of way. So then we were able to use the Senator Dodd money to go out in critical areas beyond onto the landowner property. So both of those had good improvements in key areas, plus they got roadside right away field treatments done. Another great one is, in my career, didn't always worry about fuel beds along creeks, but in our new fire environment, we've lost multiple structures along some of the creeks, principally in the Milliken Creek in Sierra and the Silverado area. So we made great breakthroughs with Eric Hernandez's help from County Fire Marshal's office to partner up with Fish and Wildlife, and we have a good kind of a good blueprint for how to work in and around creeks now. And we're gonna encourage that person, Robin Swan, to help us get the word out to landowners who may need to do defensible space in creeks. My house could be one case in point. A lot of us live near creeks, or we have concerns in our fire safe councils. So anyway, those are a couple areas that have gone really well. A couple projects. We have almost all of the Dodd projects have started to some degree. I see Pat Howard on the line. Gordon Valley is that JC Greenberg and I have had a lot of discussions of what Dozer Roads to open up. Looked at the Fire Safe Council's suggestions, but that there's only a couple that we haven't made good ground contact in site visits, but they're all rolling along to some degree or another, with a few of them being done already. But yeah, I'm very proud. So much good work is happening out there at your guys' level and helping us to plan and coordinate.
Okay. Cool. And we don't have no one's got any questions or anything they want to ask specifically? I know Christopher wanted to talk a little bit about Measure L. Christopher, you're still on, or?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And then do you want to talk a little bit about that email about Measure L? And about Measure L?
Yes, I'd love to.
Great.
So I would like to just kind of give everybody an update. So we've got a campaign committee. I am the co-chair with Ryan Gregory, and we have been feverishly going out and meeting with agencies and groups to once a day at least, sometimes twice a day. League of Women Voters, the Democrats caucus, grape growers, farm workers, vintners. I mean, and the great thing is that we're getting, with the exception of one agency, it was their realtors, we have been received with open arms, and people are eager to endorse Measure L. And we've had a $200,000 campaign budget. We are now at $100,000, and that was in 2 weeks of campaign of fundraising. And so the good news is we are now about to inundate the county with yes on L signs. The Napa train, the wine train, gave us permission to put signs in there right away. We've got a whole list of places that we're going to be mounting signs, both yard signs, large 4x4 signs. We've got bumper stickers. One of my favorite bumper stickers is L Yes. So we'll have yes on L, and then we have L Yes. So it's going very well, and we're getting good feedback. I feel cautiously optimistic about things at this stage. We have also, I'm going to put a couple of things on the chat. It's stopnapafires.com, and it is our official campaign website. and you can spread that around. We're looking for donations, obviously. We want all the fire safe councils to go out and evangelize the word on Measure L. And there is upcoming on the 28th, it's a fire resource fair being put on by Napa Valley Vintners, Napa Valley Grape Growers, and Napa Firewise. And it's a fire resource fair. It's from 10 to 2 at the Napa Valley College Upper Campus. And we plan to have a table there to do some handouts. But it's also, just from a fire safe council standpoint, a good place to go and see and hear about the latest and greatest in fire prevention. Some fire suppression stuff will be there. I know some county equipment is going to be there, and it's just a good way to shake hands and kiss babies, as they say, and get the word out. So I'll put both those on the chat. And also happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Great.
Christopher, how do we get a sign if we want to post a sign at our home? How do we get it?
I literally was just emailed about half hour before this call that the signs will be ready tomorrow. So I'm going to have to follow up on that. I do know that Matt is going to hire a company that will go out and mount a lot of these things, and then we're going to get several thousand to give out. And I don't know exactly where I'm supposed to pick those up, but I'm going to find out and then make sure everybody gets a batch.
And then
Great.
what are the common, Robert, you go first. Go next.
This is Bob. Bob's good. I just had a quick question. This will be on the November ballot. Is that correct?
Nope, June 7th.
Oh,
And-
okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I, for me, one of the biggest talking points when I've read through them all is this allows us to get matching funds. So this money, we're going to use this money to go out and get matching funds. So if we can raise, what is it, Christopher, are they thinking about 8 million that would come back to the county?
Yeah, it's roughly between 7.5 to 8 million a year for year 1 through 5, and then it changes because we had to strike deals with the municipalities that they got more and we get less in years 6 through 10. It sunsets on the 10th year. It's basically $100 million in 10 years. It's quarter-cent tax, sales tax, but that does not, sales tax doesn't apply to, medical and a number of things that I think a lot of people were concerned about in terms of having this be a regressive tax in an era of some pretty rapid inflation. So it works out to be about $12 for every $5,000 spent. So it is, and if you consider how regressive our fires have been in terms of shutting down our industries and tourism and so forth, it pales in comparison to that kind of an event. And also, I would add that the tax is also paid by people coming to visit. So we figure that's about 30% of the overall money that's raised over 10 years will be paid by visitors into the county.
Okay. And then, so if we're getting, let's say we're getting 8 million a year, does that mean we can go get we'll get matching funds? So that will then basically translate to like 16 million a year spent in the county?
Yeah, I'll let Joe speak to that.
That's
a
what I
little more.
picked up from
Yeah,
his talk.
but yes, I mean, the thing is that some of these grants that we're going after require matching funds. Obviously, the FEMA grant that we're chasing is, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 25% matching. So this allows us to leverage the tax money beyond just having it go directly into the field. It gives us those matching funds to increase the grant opportunities that we're seeking.
That's right.
That we would not be able to have.
The conservative estimate is that we have to spend somewhere between 10 to 15 to 20 million a year over the next 10 years to really kind of get ahead of all this fuel reduction stuff. There is federal money that's out there and state money that's out there, but it's a lottery. And so when we chase those grants, we might win one out of every 3 or 4 or 5 of them. And our chances are much better if we can show matching. And the big grants like the FEMA grant require 25% matching. So if we chase $40 million from FEMA or 30 million, the county's obligated to basically pony up 10 million some odd dollars to make sure that we can actually access those funds.
And I would add to that one of the issues that we all have is when we can find a grant that gives us the initial money to do work, as we were describing this evening, but it's much harder to find a grant that gives us money to do the maintenance in 3 to 5 years in the work that's being done. So that's one of the critical reasons for a durable funding source. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to go back and maintain that work, or else it's as if we never accomplished anything when we spent the money in the first place.
Okay, because I noticed, because as we get out and, talk to our friends and colleagues and neighbors about this, kind of where, what kind of issues will come up for people and the easy or the conversational talking points to help get past them. So.
Yes, and I think that what has to be said is that this is not going to stop fire. That's not our claim. What we are trying to do is we are trying to give ourselves a fighting chance with these episodic fires that we've been experiencing, and everything that you've described this evening that Mike went over is doing just that. It gives us a way to take a stand against these fires and push them back, and so it's critical. And I love to tell people when I have these conversations, we have a choice. Either we do it the way all of you are planning to do it, and that we have done thus far, or Mother Nature is going to do it for us. And she has done the mitigation of this valley up to 60% of it between the 17 and 20 fires. And I think everybody on this phone call would admit that was not what we want. And so us going out and doing this work in a very purposeful, scientific, calculated way is going to be a much better application for fuel reduction.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Christopher, excuse me if you've already answered this. I had to step away for a moment. And you did touch on it a little bit with the non-medical taxation, but I think one of the biggest arguments against the measure is going to be that it unfairly falls to low-income people. And there's already been at least one, if not 2 letters to the editor about that. That's common when there's sales tax measures. So is there any other response that we can make?
Well, I'll put the,
that?
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll put the presentation on the chat line so you can look at what we're talking about. So here's what we've been saying. Working families are asked in surveys whether they support or oppose such a plan. Overwhelmingly, they said they supported it. Working families are hit hardest economically in the fires of 2017 and 2020 in lost wages, child care coverages, right? Because all the kids get sent home with smoke days, housing dislocations, and job loss. An additional quarter-cent adds $25 for every 10,000 in sales taxable transactions, which do not include the vast majority of things families spend on: housing, healthcare, and groceries. So example, minimum wage worker making $30,000 per year, assume a $5,000 is taxable. $1,250 total cost of the measure per year, or $120 lost in wages in one day. So the point is, if you look at what that individual is losing in lost wages for a day's worth of work, which we know has been extensive through the valley, versus what they're paying in a tax, it pales in comparison to what we've been experiencing with smoke days and evacuations, fires, PSPS. I mean, it's just I spent time going through this with the Visit Napa people, and they said, it used to be that the best month of the year for TOT and other types of taxes for people coming in to visit was October. And it's turning out to be now one of the worst months because we have our North Wind events. It's the driest time of our fire season, and it's when we've had our worst fires.
Yeah.
Christopher, and you may have said this and I may have missed it, so I apologize. Are they going to post or distribute FAQs and talking points? Because some of the stuff you're saying is pure gold and we all need to be on the same page and saying the same thing.
Yes, and that's what I'm actually, see how I can copy this, if I can do this right now.
There's a web, I think it's all on the website.
Yeah, if you go to Napa, stopnapafires.com, it should all be.
I did, and I didn't see that.
The talking points, okay.
What are we doing with the slide deck that we put together,
Yeah.
Christopher?
Yeah. What I'll do is
I see donate, I see about Measure L, I see first
I'm going
5
to
years
send
in
this
rail
to
fire protection.
Elaine right now, and then Elaine, will you distribute it to everybody?
Sure. Yeah. If you email it to me, I'll send it out to everybody. And then it'd be great to get, if we have a webmaster, to get it up on the website. What was I going to say? I've lost it. Oh, letters to the editor. So do you all have all that planned out? If there's already been a couple letters to the editor against it because of the sales tax, the perceived regressiveness of the sales tax, or do we have rebuttals and all that stuff lined up? Do we need to be recruiting? Do we need to be, how can we help as the FSCs? Because we'll all benefit from this.
We do have that. So we have two things. We have obviously the argument for, and then there was argument against, which is the anti-tax people, which basically said, hey, there's enough money in the county to do this already. That's one of their arguments. Their argument is that there's 138 million that's been earmarked by the governor. Use that money. And so our rebuttal to that was, no, there's not enough money. We have 42 of allocated for doing this work, and there's not $42 million sitting in the county coffers, period. And that's all public information. That you can see that. And secondly, there are 58 counties in the state of California. And if you were to take that 138 million on a pro rata basis, it would be $2.3 million that we would get. And we all know as a Fire Safe Council, how difficult it is to get the grants. I mean, I've been on this board going on 4 years now. It took me 3 years or 2.5 years before I got my first grant of significance. Joe's been on much longer. It's not a sure thing. And that money one of the things that has to be said is that when grants are applied for in Northern California, they get sent down to Southern California for evaluation and scoring, and vice versa. So basically, we don't have a lot of familiarity with what's going on in Southern California, and conversely, they don't have a lot of familiarity with what's going on in Northern California. But they do that because they don't want a conflict of interest. But consequently, people don't understand all the ins and outs of what we have going on up here and what we're striving for. And the other thing is that we got a lot of money in grants because people felt sorry for us. We had significant fires in 2020. And Division Chief Pre-Fire Prevention, Tom Connect, has said, don't expect to get that kind of money again because there's a lot of hands that are out. And that is part of the recognition that the scoring takes on, is that, have you gotten money before? And if that's the case, we need this durable funding source.
Hey, Elaine, this is Mike. I wanted to mention, highlight a couple. You asked for good examples, and this kind of ties in if you're out and about and can take people by these areas. Drive France Valley School Road is getting a good haircut right now. Like I said, Soda Canyon and Atlas Peak, Dry Creek Road. And also I see Jim Perry on the phone here. He is the Fire Safe Council lead there at Hagen Oaks. And So with a lot of us in and around Napa, right along Hagen Road in the city of Napa, right, Jim, is a really good shaded field break that his HOA has started, and he's got some dog funds to extend that. But it shows, pure brush and then a break where they've had to stop, and then a really good shaded field break right up above Hagen Road there. So I wanted to throw that out as well.
The primary argument against this, nobody has told me. In fact, one of the most prominent dissenters is Mayor Sedgley of Napa City, and I've spoken with him a couple of times now, and he basically said Christopher Action gives us a good idea, and we need it, but I don't want the county telling me what to do. So there's some drama going on between some of the cities and the county that has absolutely nothing to do with whether this is a good idea or not. It's just baggage that's been pulled into the equation. The other thing is that, and Mike can attest to this, the city of Napa is in a mess with regard to any types of fuel mitigation efforts that have taken place with their water system. And I've told Sedgley, I said, you just need to talk to Mayor Ellsworth of St. Helena and talk about what happened after the glass fire and their water source was essentially destroyed in the Bell Canyon Reservoir, because that's what's going to happen with Lake Hennessy. And that's what's going to happen with all the water tanks that got sitting on the hill with all kinds of vegetation all around it. Nothing has been done. No clearing has been done. And they're going to end up in exactly the same situation. The other argument always is, hey, the county has this money. And so what I've told the supervisor, Gregory, is you've got to drill home what the budget is and what it has and what it doesn't have. And it does not have $42 million. And we all know that we're funded and have essentially spent our first year of our 5-year plan. Year 2 is about to roll up. And there's no plan B right now if we don't get this tax approved. It doesn't mean that we won't get money, but I guarantee you it won't be $9 million that we're asking for.
I think, Christopher, to reinforce, did we lose Christopher?
I'm here.
Okay, to reinforce your point, our second year is partially funded by this CAL FIRE fire prevention grant, but to Tom Connect's point, we have no guarantee that we might not see another fire prevention grant of that size for 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Well, the other thing too
is like
that
part of year 2 and 3, 4, 5 of our 5-year plan. And of course, as we've really dug into this initiative and continue to do field work and gotten all this great information from the fire safe councils, we've identified another 20 projects that weren't even in the 5-year plan. So there's a lot of work to do.
One of the challenges of the CAL FIRE grants is that you once you issue your first tranche of money, you have to spend that down to 0 before they'll give you your second tranche of money, and that second tranche of money can take up to 90 days to get. And so when doing these large CAL FIRE grants, you really have to have some you have to rob Peter to pay Paul and move things around. Otherwise, basically, you come to a screeching stop until the money rolls in from CAL FIRE, which obviously is not a smart thing. With losing a vendor for 90 days and trying to get them remobilized after the money shows up. So there's a lot of good that comes with this tax in terms of even the grant money that we have been gotten.
Okay.
More questions?
Yeah. Anything else you all want to go over? Okay.
Elaine, I'll get just because you've got the ability to outreach to everybody, I'll get the take on the signs and bumper stickers and stuff like that. I'll get that tonight, and then I'll email you that tomorrow and make that happen. I know that we've got a bunch being delivered, I think by the end of this week. I just don't know exactly where.
And that PowerPoint deck you just sent me,
Yep.
That has all those talking points are on it?
Yes, it does. That is the presentation that we give when we go out and meet with these groups. And if you look at the very last page, it shows everybody who's basically signed up and said, we're going to support this. And then we've got more that has happened over the last few days. So I've been very happy with the results, and we get some really good questions, and these presentations take at least an hour.
Oh, good. Great.
So Christopher, can we also have that sort of slimmed down to an FAQ and have that on the Measure L site?
Yes, we can. Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that would be great, because then it's, it's something handy that everybody can have easily and be armed to talk about this.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
Great. And I just sent that off already, so we're ready to go. Okay, super. Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. Do you guys anyone have any more questions? We need contacts in Deer Park. So we're trying to get that FSC reconstituted. We've got 2 names so far. I think we could use 3, or if we had 3 or 4, we'd be great. So if anyone's got contacts in Deer Park, please send them our way so we can help them get their FSC going. Okay, great. Right on,
Good.
everybody. Joe, you good, or does that mean you want to talk?
No, that's just good job, everybody. Keep up the great
Yep.
work.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Good
Have
night,
a
everybody.
very
Thank you.
good
Thank
Thank you,
Wednesday.
guys.
Thank
Okay,
you, everyone. Cheers.
bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Everybody.